Hi, and welcome to Decoding AQ, helping you to learn the tools, mindsets, and actions to thrive in an ever-changing world. Hi, and welcome to the next episode of Decoding AQ. With me this evening, I have Laura Lohk, and she's joining me from actually pretty close. So I know I speak to lots of people from different locations, but Laura's based in Poole, which is about 30 minutes from where I live, which is awesome. And we're going to hear about lots of her story from lawyer to head of operations and consultancy at GS Fast Growth, lots of things in between. So welcome, Laura.
Thank you.
My first question I've got for you is, you surprised me in our preamble when I said, "Oh, can you help me pronounce your name right?" And you said, or you could just call me Bob. So tell me the story of why people would even call you Bob, Laura.
Yeah. Well, because obviously my name is written like Laura, but because I'm from Estonia, so I like my name and it's pronounced Laura. But when I moved to this country, people started calling me various different names. And it was Lara or Laura or Lola or anything like that. So I just said, never mind, just call me Bob. And it kind of, stayed from there. And I created lots of laughs, and it's a great icebreaker. And so, people asking me questions then, and it's just a funny thing to say now. But yeah, it's been like that for years.
And so growing up in Estonia, what was the shift that landed you here in the UK? What was kind of your journey that you took through that? Because I'd be fascinated. We were introduced by a mutual friend, Paul Booker. He's given me a little bit of insight. So I'm excited to hear it from you as to perhaps some of your journey and the adaptations you had along the way.
It's quite a long story, really, because, it wasn't sort of a simple shift that, I wanted to move away. It was just because of my background. And, I was in a position where sort of I didn't have a father. My mother was quite unstable and really struggled with like mental health and just kind of looking after me. And we were very poor. So we were homeless for a very long period of time. And it kind of came to a point where I just kind of got really, really, I was 16, I was a teenager, I was really, really angry with the world. And I kind of got myself into a point when I was like, if this is going to be my life for the rest of my life, then I don't want it. And so I kind of got myself into quite a deep depression over the whole thing. How I was homeless and we didn't have any money for food for very often. Sometimes I studied at the candlelight, stuff like that. And I was obviously struggling in school. So, and when I was about 16, I got myself into a position when I was depressed, but I was so angry that I almost developed this utter desire to get out of that situation. And I swore myself that I will do whatever I need to do to get myself into a better position. And I think it was that sort of mindset shift that kind of things have started to happen. And it took me 3 years. But then when I was 19, I managed to get a voluntary position in the UK. So I landed in the UK when I was 19 here. So I was 19, I landed in the UK with like a suitcase and 42 pounds in my pocket. So, but I think the shift was, this almost a rock bottom, because for me, there are only 2 ways to go with rock bottom. You either stay there and that is your position, or you just climb the hell out of it. And that was kind of my thing.
When you remember back to that, this situation, and as a young girl having the awareness to realize that, well, I've got to do something here, and a mindset shift to trigger you to say, I'm going to do everything it takes to get out of this. Was that a particular event that happened? Was it somebody you met, or was it just a situation of just utter despair and said, this is enough, I've got to find a way? And maybe just walk us through a couple of things that happened, you know, from being homeless and struggling in all parts of life and mental health with a you know, hand you were dealt with. Where did it start? Did it start in getting different in school? Did it, you know, what were some of those things you did when you were at that bottom situation?
It was really that utter despair. That was, I suppose, the almost the fuel. And I did not have a plan B, and that was the other one, because there was no, if I stayed there, in my very inexperienced mind, I had no other options. There was no, I couldn't go to university because at the time you needed money to go to university. There was no, you know, I didn't have, you know, rich uncle tucked away anywhere. You know, I didn't have a father. My mother couldn't look after me. Yes, I got some support from aunties, but there wasn't anything else. So one of the things was certainly that. But at the time, Estonian schools had to have like a counselor or a psychologist there. So I started to go, because that was the only person that I could speak to. I couldn't speak to my teachers. I was too afraid to tell everyone that, you know, I didn't have anything to eat at home, or I didn't have anywhere to live. All my, you know, my sort of friends, it was even worse. I didn't want anyone to find out. So the psychologist kind of helped quite a lot, and I think she kind of put me in touch with a charity where I started volunteering. So that kind of got me out of like from school and from a home situation. So that really helped. And one of the sort of, I suppose, mentors from that charity gave me a book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens. And I think I read that book, and my love of self-development kind of started from there, because I hated school. I was really bad at school. Academically, I was known as a stupid kid, and I hated reading, but I read that book and I religiously did all the exercises there. And that was, I think, one of the things that really, really helped me, and kind of got me like this real hunger of, I have no idea how I'm going to get out of this situation. I have no options. I have no almost vision for it. I just know that since I don't have a plan B, that's the only way to go. So I'm just going to go for it. And then, you know, things just started to happen. I was introduced to this opportunity to come to the UK as an international volunteer. I mean, it was a year's process, and you know, hundreds of people apply for it. So it's not an easy thing to get. But I think, you know, I was just adamant that this is what I'm going to do.
You know, I'm smiling for a few different things, because the first one, having spoken to a variety of people who've been connected to those that have reached their bottom. And one of the things is to then find a way to be of value through volunteering and of service is ironically being quite a few people's first steps, you know. And you think when you're at bottom, how can I go and volunteer? How can I go and serve? But actually that act helps shift a trigger. The second part that made me smile was you mentioned the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teenagers, because when I met my wife 18 years ago, her youngest son was a teenager, and we got him that book, and it transformed his life massively. And that has, you know, domino and ripple affected his life in very, very positive ways. The other part of volunteering that just made me smile is something that changed my life profoundly was a project we did many years ago for the United Nations volunteers. And so we did the global rebranding for the UN volunteers and then rolled it out across their 86 different countries, and meeting volunteers in Nairobi, in all sorts of different places, just how it can affect somebody's life and their trajectory. So what a brilliant opportunity you got to do that, and brought you here, you know, gained mentors, And then what kind of happened from then? So you
Mm.
came to the UK, you were doing the volunteering piece. What were some of the next sort of phases for you, Laura, of your transition and incredible story?
So obviously, you know, as a volunteer, you live in a shared accommodation and you have like £220 a month. And because I didn't have any money, I was like, oh God, I'm rich. You know, that was like my first thing. I was like, wow, how much money I have. But, you know, so the voluntary position was for 11 months and I had no intention of going back. Everyone, you know, back home, you know, some of my sort of friends or, you know, family members like, oh, you have to start thinking about what you're going to do when you come back. And, you know, when I left, I had no intention of coming back. You know, I thought that I'm going to America, but obviously because of everything that happened, the borders were still quite closed. And I decided to stay here. So I really just started to kind of think what I wanted to do with my life. And I actually didn't have a clue what I really wanted to study at the time, because again, I was, you know, it's drilled into me that you're academically stupid, so you won't be able to do lots of things. And again, that was a, you know, sort of, I had to be here for a few years before I could apply for university. But again, I was on my own. I was in a very, very small wage. And I couldn't go to university full time. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go part time then. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to study. And again, I think few things happened. I was, you know, I broke up with my ex-boyfriend and, you know, I was kind of a bit a low place. And again, I was like, right, I need to do something. I need to study something. What could be the hardest thing that I could study in a foreign language that I could show those people that I can do it? So I literally took this prospectus and I was like, no, this is boring. This is boring. Oh, law. Now this is really interesting because I love all the shows on the TV, you know, where these lawyers put the criminals away. I was very much that. So
were you
I
watching
literally,
Suits? Was Suits the thing at the
yeah,
time?
yeah,
Boston
absolutely.
Legal.
I was loving all of that.
Okay.
So yeah, I just rang up, you know, Open University because that was the thing that I could, you know, do at the time. I was like, oh yeah, well, when is your next law course starts? Wonderful, put my name down. And I literally just signed up to a law course like that. And as it happened, I actually quite enjoyed it. It was very, very hard. Obviously, the language was so specific. I remember still my books were all, you know, translated because I just didn't understand. The first year was the hardest. You know, a few years later, I found my first legal job as a legal assistant. And so I worked my way up in a legal field and became a department head of like 50 people way before I was even qualified. So because obviously studying part-time, it took me twice as long to do the legal course and then the LPC, which you have to do in the UK, and then the training contract and all of that. So it took me all together, I think, 8 years to qualify for that reason. Yeah, I really, you know, enjoyed the course. I did find it hard academically. Yeah. I found, you know, I failed a few exams, but, you know, you just redo them. Yeah. But because I knew that I was already working in a legal field, I was already really, really good at my job. I realized very quickly that I just needed that piece of paper. I can practically do it myself without the qualification. So that kind of gave me like the realization that actually, you know, whatever I was told, it was just utter rubbish.
Yeah. You redesigned the relationship with yourself through a different kind of data input. And so by experiencing that process and putting yourself under pressure, just realizing what are your capabilities. And many of us don't know our capabilities until we put them on test, you know, and we trial them and we build these muscles of confidence, and we need courage to do something before we've got the capability. I think for you, a unique opportunity of actually learning other skills alongside law, like dealing with people, you know, managing a team of 50, all of those things. different skills than legal skills that have perhaps been part of how that shaped your next transition of career, where you've gone from, you know, a lawyer in through then coaching and in through consultancy work, and now some of your work where you're helping leaders, you know, deal with how they get good results in their own business. And so I'm interested, before we dive into sort of kind of where you are now, the other piece that just resonated with me, I interviewed yesterday a chap called Jason Pfeiffer. He's the editor of Entrepreneur magazine, has been for 7 years or so. He wrote a great book last year called Build for Tomorrow, all about adaptability, all good stuff. And in there, he talks about wouldn't go back moments. And when you were talking about, I'm in the UK and everyone's saying, oh, when are you going to come back? You've got to be thinking about that. For you, it was a wouldn't go back moment. You can't unsee what you'd seen. You can't unexperience what you've experienced. So I'm interested now in kind of the phase of the transition from, okay, doing really well in this career. I'm department head. I'm looking after people's results and their KPIs and coaching them, supporting them. I've got my own caseload to deal with, now qualified. What shifted you from that to then the next kind of phase of your career portfolio into more the coaching side? What were some of those triggers, Lara?
Again, you know, when I qualified as a solicitor, I was like, okay, I did it now. I have a paper to show it. And I was like, oh, well, what now? You know, I very quickly realized that, oh, that's not really what I want to do long term. Because I'm very independent and I'm very stubborn, and, you know, taking constantly orders from like your bosses, that I'm thinking, well, when you do this decision, actually, what doesn't really make any sense. I think we should do it this way, and you can't do that in a very, very large organization. So I had this again. I suppose why I didn't do it earlier is that, again, I was drilled into that. I was stupid, and, you know, I'm a woman, so you can't really, you know, start a business and run a successful business. So you have to at least go to work or you know, be home as a you know, housewife kind of thing. So when I got to the point when I had achieved quite a lot in my legal career, I kind of started to feel that I'm not fulfilled in terms of my career, I suppose. And again, you know, sort of self-development has been a love of mine for such a long time. And I read a lot, you know, I have lots of books on self-development, and I went to therapy, actually. And the therapist was a cognitive hypnotherapist. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I'm just going to go and find out what they do. And the theory really interested me, how brain works, NLP, so the language, and so forth. And I was like, do you know what? I want to go and study that. So I went initially and studied to be a cognitive hypnotherapist and NLP master practitioner. And when I qualified, I actually did quite a lot of mental health work myself, but I was more interested in sort of coaching side of things and helping entrepreneurs and business owners. So it's kind of just pivoted naturally, I think. And I've kind of gone where my interest has led me, I suppose. I mean, my family and friends thought I was completely bonkers when I left, obviously, my very good legal job. They was like, I mean, are you absolutely kidding me? Like, you've gone mad. But yeah,
it's very interesting, isn't it? This perspective, you know, our own perspective of ourselves, our own self-image. You've talked about that a few times, of how it was formed maybe from external factors, and you've reshaped it from internal work and doing the internal work to reprogram your own beliefs and what is possible. And then reaching a level of success, it redefines your identity with those around you. And then when you take another turn, that can be, you know, unnerving for others around, let alone the internal person that's making those decisions. And you've mentioned a couple of times now where therapy has helped you in certain situations, and being able to recognize a need for support and help, and then acting on that is often two very different things. You know, many of us can be, oh, I'm really struggling. but do nothing about it,
Yeah.
or go to people who are ill-equipped to help us in that particular situation, particularly in therapy and stuff. I watched a documentary recently, the Jonah Hill one, he made about his therapist. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Stutz, I think, Stutz, his therapist that he's had for years. And as sort of a homage to him, he wanted to make a little documentary film about their relationship. It's on Netflix. And it's a really interesting relationship that they both have. And he's quite a different approach in his therapy work. So I think you might find that fascinating, just as a side note. So you then, okay, I'm fascinated by this. I'm following interest, looking into NLP, looking into hypnotherapy, looking into coaching. Let's fast forward to now. What really excites you? What work are you doing? And where is that energy coming from in those results? Because I know it's a key component for you about, don't want any BS, don't want no gimmicks in the work, don't want things to be false, and it's all around the outcomes and results. So talk to me a little bit about what's going on right now in Laura's world, of what's really exciting and how you're applying the lessons you've learned so far.
Yeah, so obviously now we have a business where we help businesses to grow and scale, but not in a way that a lot of entrepreneurs, I suppose, doing it on sort of Instagram, which you see on social media quite a lot of, fancy cars and yachts and stuff like that. So it's none of that. It's evidence-based strategies and award-winning methodologies to actually get the real results, and not just sort of appeared results or sometimes there are plenty of amazing people out there who get results, but there are also a lot of people who don't. So we're there to help businesses to grow and scale in an evidence-based way, instead of none of this fluffy things that kind of go around.
What does that look like? Is that online learning? Is it peer stuff? Is it you go in as a consultant? What are some of the things? So if some of our audience, they are running their own businesses in coaching, in consultancy work, and many of them find it, a challenge. They're good at the work they do, find it hard to run the business, and that is a challenge for many entrepreneurs of all the other components, whether that's how do you get sales, how do you win new business, or how do you outsource things when you haven't got maybe the cash to outsource it and you're doing too many things. So practically, what do some of those steps look like, and how you help? And maybe tell us a story about somebody, without naming names, that you're seeing results or have seen some results with some of the work that you've been doing.
So we have sort of online programs for various businesses at various levels. So we have online programs that, for young entrepreneurs who either want to start their journey, or they're kind of there, but they don't really know where they're going and what they're doing, but they also don't have the financials, I suppose, behind it, so that they can actually get an initial support through online programs. And we also then have one-to-ones. So you can work with one of our consultants, either myself or one other consultants, to do one-to-one work as well, which is sort of a level up. So if you imagine almost like a stepping stones. So we have programs from entrepreneurs who are like just starting out or new, to all the way up to a quite large organization. So we have some very, very skilled consultants doing the high-end stuff as well. So we have online programs, but we also do sort of face-to-face and individual consulting with businesses. But it's really helping them from foundation upwards, because I've met a lot of businesses, they've been on like operational for 30 years, and then I have a conversation with them and they are kind of wonky because the foundation is not there. So very often initially when I started, in coaching, I was like, oh, these bigger businesses, they have everything sorted. And then I started talking to some of them, and there are lots of holes in their business. And not only that, obviously, because I'm coming from sort of therapy and NLP background, I also notice how the business leaders themselves are a bit wonky in their business. So I do still quite a lot of sort of the mindset work and helping them to be the true leader in the business, instead of, if you imagine an entrepreneur who doesn't maybe have a big team and they are the main person in the business. So if they are wonky, so will be the business. So there is a lot of kind of foundational work that I noticed that I've done and I continue to do with businesses.
Do you particularly resonate with a style from your own story? You talked about there's ones with companies running 30 years, highly experienced but still have some holes, and others who are maybe lack resources, maybe have been dealt not a great hand, got a really interesting ambition or idea, and they're just needing support to get some of those foundations in place. So those are the ones you really connect with well, because we all have a choice, right? Who do we want to work with? Who do we want to be a hero to? Who's ideal for us? If people are listening and really, connected with Laura around, do you know what, your story is fascinating, I'm really inspired by your own experience of where you've taken yourself through, I'd like to hang out, have some conversations. Who would be a perfect kind of fit for you, not necessarily fast growth programs and the wider piece, but for you, who would be a dream come true kind of engagement?
I think for me, I really love working with like really ambitious entrepreneurs. Well, I suppose who maybe I almost see myself in them, like they would just, crawl through a keyhole if they really had to get to their dreams, but they just don't know how, and they may be overwhelmed and they don't have the structure and plans in place, and they just need a bit of support and strategies and just accountability, because that's a huge thing. I can give my clients all of the stuff, but if they don't use it in the right way, they don't get results. So accountability actually, and helping them to really, guide them through the process. As long as they do that, they will get the results, because we're very, believe in our products. Because they do get results, as long as people
do it,
actually use it. So But yeah, for myself, I just love working with entrepreneurs who have this fire and they're really passionate about something. That's kind of my thing that I really, really enjoy.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because people go through phases, right? Their energy level of, I've been an entrepreneur 25 years, and there's times where, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll crawl through that keyhole. And other times where I'm going, I need to chill for a bit. I'm a bit spent. And that's life, right? We go through it. But fundamentally, I think there are those with a makeup that are more lifestyle. They want to get to a particular level and then maintain it. And others that always want to keep expanding, always want to grow. They climb that mountain and see another one, and the ambition keeps rolling for it. And that's motivating for the right connection, the right fit. So if, having the ambition, having the grit, having all of those sorts of things, what's your vision for how people need support or preparing when the world itself is shifting so quickly? So, these strategies you mentioned, have been established for 40 years, all of these pieces, what part now is evolving? Do the strategies need to evolve? Are they, no, they're fundamental, they're right through, and it's just how they apply with new technologies or new things. What's your view of what's going on right now? There's lots of change, lots of new technologies, and entrepreneurs, don't necessarily need big teams, don't need to necessarily hire people to do things where we might have had to 20 years ago. Now there's software, technology to do different things. What's your view around those early entrepreneurs now of maybe how they might need to think differently in their mindset about building a business in today's world, not maybe businesses they've seen from their parents or fathers or others in the past?
I think one thing is obviously COVID taught us that, everything just, skipped a few stages and everything like changed so quickly. And I think what, in my opinion, what happened was that people almost resisted that change. But things, people, they have to kind of accept that change is happening. That's you cannot stop it really. So I suppose for me, it's like just relaxing into the fact that it's gonna happen and keeping the open mind and not resisting it, because that in itself causes a lot of stress and lots of anxiety. So just being very, very open-minded. But I suppose my worry a little bit is with the younger entrepreneurs that, yes, they almost think that they can do everything themselves. And yeah, to a point they can. But I also notice a lot of mental health troubles because of that, and a lot of just wellness issues because of that. So whilst, yes, there is a great technology now that can entrepreneurs to do lots of these things on their own, I think they shouldn't in a sense that we are still social creatures and we need that human connection. And again, COVID taught us that some people were like, oh my God, it's amazing, I can go online, I don't have to go anywhere, I don't have to see people. And I was one of them. I was like, I'm fine like that. And then I worked from home for 2-3 years, and then I came back to the office and I had people around me, and I've kind of realized how much better it is for my health. So I think it's just don't resist it and be open-minded, and kind of flow with that, because the new technology that comes out, it's great and it can really help, and it can really it's great for productivity, but that doesn't mean
social
that,
beings.
But I think it's still a good idea to not be like tucked away in a corner and lose that ability to socialize, because again, social media, everything like that, it's kind of it does actually decrease our brain, because it like sat nav, for example, it's an amazing tool. I wouldn't go anywhere without it. However, the research has shown that part of the brain is no longer active when we constantly use sat nav, and we don't use actual planning and thinking. So it has sort of pros and cons. I think we should use the technology, but not the detriment of our health and our well-being.
I think what's interesting now is we at least have that choice, where historically the way that you built things, the choices for doing that, if you wanted to scale, was limited. There was a few options that you could do. You can invest in machinery and invest in people. And then, as things have evolved, and I remember the book came out a year or so before COVID, the Company of One by Paul Jarvis, and just that whole approach of why staying small is the next big thing, and how we go in waves. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to employ people. They're a pain in the ass. All the complications of employing these complex beings called humans that have issues, that have problems, that have lives. And, we want to try and create value, alignment, all of those things. It's hard work. And for others, they make a choice and say, no, I just want to be company of one, do my stuff, and might get my social fix from maybe the way I engage with my product, service, audience, those types of things. But at the points of these various decisions, what I think is really interesting is we have a choice and we can change our minds. We can go down one path and decide, lawyer's not for me, I'll shift. Oh, I'm going to employ people. Employing people is not for me. I want to be on my own. So I think this constant opportunity to just give ourselves a break. That I know I grew up that quitting was bad, right? You quit something, it's bad. My parents, no, you said you were going to learn the guitar or learn piano, so you're going to keep going to your lessons, or you said you were going to do this. And whereas maybe sometimes quitting's a good thing if it's done in the right way. And so again, your identity, I'm the stupid person to, no, you're not. That was opinion, not fact. I want to be one. That's an opinion, not fact. We can do different things now. So for you, where you went by yourself, doing your own entrepreneurial journey, now joined a larger firm, you're doing different things. It evolves, right? It dances, and that's the poeticness of life, I suppose. My next sort of thought for you, Laura, is if we have this abundant opportunity of doing things, and these entrepreneurs are really ambitious, really excited, what do you think are some of those core essential skills, maybe not necessarily all these strategies or techniques that you can help them with? What are the skills that you think are valuable for success? Maybe ones that you've seen in yourself or seen in others. What would you say around that?
I'm not sure that it's a skill, but that there are, in my mind, just there is a story that, in fact, I'm speaking at the event and end of the week. And there's one thing that I share there is that there are a few elements that needs to be present in order for, if somebody really wants to achieve something. And one of them is just utter desire, and not having sort of the plan B, not kind of like, I've met some entrepreneurs that go, well, I suppose I could give it a go attitude, and they never succeed because they give up as soon as a challenge arises, and it happens. And I'm talking about this, I will, watch me kind of attitude instead.
Tenacity.
Yeah, so the real utter desire, not thinking that I have a, as a becoming a lawyer, for example, I was told, because I'm a woman, because I'm a foreigner, and because I'm not very clever, I'm probably never going to become a solicitor. Plus it's training contractor, like I gold dust. So I kind of went through it, and for me it was like, no, I'm going to become a solicitor. I have no idea how exactly, but I'm going to become a solicitor. So I didn't kind of have a plan B. And I think it was the same like when I decided at the age of 16 that I will get out of this situation. I didn't have a plan B. And I think it was that there's only one way to go about it. So I think it's that kind of mindset, instead of going, oh, I suppose I can try it for a few moments, but if it doesn't work out, I think
maybe the presentness of all in. At the moment, I'm all in, I'm with it, and how far am I willing to go before I then might find a new route with that openness to find the next one, or I'll find another way, or I'll find other ways, that I'll try so many different things to pursue and expand what I'm trying to achieve.
One thing that when I was studying to be a cognitive hypnotherapist, our tutor, Travis Sylvester, there were a few things that he liked to say, and one of them was be like water, and I think actually Bruce Lee said that. And they're saying like, I had this fixed mindset that I'm going to be a solicitor, this is what I truly wanted to do, and for a period of time I really wanted to do that, but once I got it, I was like, actually I got it, now I want to do something else. So I didn't, like there was, again, my sort of, family was like, no, you have to carry on with this. It's a good job. Don't change. But I was like, no, I'm going to be a water and I'm just going to, find a new path kind of thing. But I still had this, I'm not going to just try it for a few moments. I'm committed. As long as I still have the desire to do it, and this is my passion, I will go for it, instead of kind of go, 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there and 5 minutes. None of that. But it's kind of be like water. You don't have to be stuck in a sort of unhappy situation ever.
I think I've observed, certainly in my own career and of others, is that passion can also evolve. It's crafted. People often say, oh, find your purpose, whatever it is, and it's always there. Well, I'll have many purposes. They'll evolve because I'll learn and see new things. And they'll reach a point, I have this desire to be a lawyer, all of those things. That's gifted me awareness and an education, a skill, a mindset. And I now see something new. And I give myself permission to go after and have ultimate perseverance, tenacity, passion, desire for the next piece. And it just depends how long that pursuit is for things. I know I've mentioned a few films and movies and documentaries, but that's one of my indulgences. And last night we just watched the Air documentary. I don't know if you've seen documentary / film about Nike and Michael Jordan. And it's really, really interesting. Have you seen it yet?
No, I've seen it advertised,
trailer.
But I haven't. Yeah, it's a trailer.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it
For those who haven't seen it yet, it's got Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Chris Tucker, got a few interesting people in there. And the person who fascinated me most was the chap called Sonny, who was the sort of talent scout trying to get the deal done, and the liaising between Nike and the agent, or not the agent as it transpired, to try and get the deal done when Nike were the not the top choice. Adidas is the top choice, Converse were the top choice at the time in 1984, and his just ultimate belief and tenacity to go after something that in himself he felt was the right thing. And so many groundbreaking shifts happened in the industry as a result of some of those activities that we don't know the impact we might have if we just give ourselves the opportunity to dream some of those things. So I found that fascinating. As we come to the sort of latter part, there's a question I ask everybody, Laura, at the end of my podcast. And it's around curiosity, and it's around doing new things. And for somebody who's done many new things, I want to ask you, when was the last time you did something for the first time, and what was it?
Probably when I did a skydive, which is a very random thing. Yeah, I had to jump out with someone who was stuck to me, so I had no choice, which was fun. And I remember landing, and I said something like, "Oh, I'm so glad to be alive." But yeah, that was probably the last time.
And what was it about the skydive? Was it the act of doing it? Was it because it was something that you cared about from a charity aspect? What was it that meant, did you just wake up one day? Did you read a book and it said, do a skydive, do something scary every day? What led you to do your skydive?
Now that's a very interesting story. That was when I was still doing my NLP master practitioner course. So we were tasked at the beginning of the course to do 4 things and write it down, because we said we gonna do it. So there is actually a movement, I don't know whether you know, in America called because I said I would. So basically there is you write a little, you take a piece of paper and you say, I'm gonna do a skydive because I said I would. And then you have to share it with somebody out loud, because you don't want to lose face. So there is a more likelihood that you're gonna do it. So we had to do 4 things, all of us, and that was one of them. And that was done for a charity. So we all actually ended up doing it, even though it was probably the most scariest thing to do it, because we was this old little plane, and somebody was like, oh, look at that, there is a hole on the floor of this plane, and we were like, oh gosh, I'm gonna jump out of it in a minute. But yeah, I think that it was because of that. It was for a charity. It was all of us kind of doing it together, and the whole kind of supporting each other, and going well done, and kind of that enforcement. But it was for charity, but it was also because of that challenge that we
because I said I would. I love that. And I'm sure people who've been listening want to know, what are the other 3 and have you done them? If you can
Yes.
share any of them.
One was we had to do, again, it was for charity, but there is this run in London for charity, run through something, I can't remember now, but it was basically 10K run. That was one of them. I've always been a short distance runner, so running a 10K was a bit of a challenge for me. One was sing in public. I have been singing since I was 3, but then I stopped when I was 18, obviously, when I came to this country. And again, I suppose when I was throughout my school time, I was kind of bullied with various things, and I loved singing, but because I was bullied when I was singing, I kind of lost the confidence. So it was actually a huge deal for me to sing in public. And there was something else which I have forgotten. How bad is that? I definitely
There you
did
go.
it.
You'll have to revisit it.
I know.
And have a look and maybe make your next list of 4 things.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge myself and my wife to write 4 things down by the end of the week of 4 things that we want to do because we said we would.
If you Google it,
Yep.
because I said I would, there is a website and there's a huge movement around that, and people send in that, oh, I finally did this, or I finally did that, or I wrote a book, and you have to share it out loud with other people who kind of it's
hold you
like,
accountable.
Oh, yeah, exactly that.
I love it. If people want to get in touch with you, Laura, what's the best way that they can do that?
Either on LinkedIn. I have a very unusual last name, so there is only one of me. So it's very easy to find me on LinkedIn, or through the website, which is csfastgrowth.com.
Perfect. We'll add them into the show notes. And if you are just listening and you want to then remember, it's Laura Lohk, which is Lohk, and Laura spelt Laura, Laura, for those in the UK. All right. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you a little bit more. And I look forward to some future collaborations as we're super close and we have a good friend in common in Mr. Booker. So it's going to be an exciting adventure ahead and full of things because we said we would, hey?
Yes, totally. Thank you very much.
Do you have the level of adaptability to survive and thrive the rapid changes ahead? Has your resilience got more comeback than a yo-yo? Do you have the ability to unlearn in order to reskill, upskill and break through? Find out today and uncover your adaptability profile and score, your AQ. Visit AQai.io to gain your personalized report across 15 scientifically validated dimensions of adaptability. For a limited time, enter code PODCAST65 for a complimentary AQME assessment. AQai, transforming the way people, teams and organizations navigate change. Thank you for listening to this episode of Decoding AQ. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast directory, and we'd love to hear your feedback. Please do leave a review and be sure to tune in next time for more insights from our amazing guests.